a very brief intro who we are and who is Atempo. Some of you already know us at some point. You know that our goal really is to deliver what we say end-to-end solution, really to store, to manage, and enrich the data, which is mostly unstructured worldwide now. So that means we have lots of different type of technology, as you may know, tape, object store, deduplication appliance, fast file system like StorNext, video surveillance. So of course, we've been protecting the data since a long time with tape and appliances around backup protection. So we have a strong knowledge on this side. Of course, video, and when we say video, this can be related to either broadcast or video surveillance, also are creating massive amount of type of data, and we have the proper tools to sustain such workload. Something that a lot of people are not aware is that we are providing the biggest hyperscalers worldwide in terms of solution to archive their data, which is, I would say, part of the discussion today. Those hyperscalers, some of them call them the GAFAs, yes, are storing, I would say, all our pictures or other unstructured type of data worldwide. That's why we have roughly 30 exabytes of tape solution spread around the world. Of course, the purpose is always to provide a solution end to end, and that's why I'm very happy to have Atempo on this call to do to solve such problematic. So whatever the vertical is today, we are able to sustain your problematic. The most painful things, we know it's cybersecurity. So whatever the business you are in, video, entertainment, video surveillance, satellite imaging, hyperscalers, or financial banking organization, the top priority is really to bring secure solution, and we'll see how with Atempo we can secure your data. The second thing about Atempo you will see is that the second, I would say, pain point most of the time is the amount of data that you are managing on a daily basis. So that means indirectly you have to have smart tools to do some data classification, data management, and we have the proper tool to help you out. Third one is the cost. We need to have a solution which must be cost effective, and you will see with our cold storage approach, we can bring an overall a huge cost reduction. And for now, I'll just hand it out to Pascal. Pascal, can you tell us a little bit more about Atempo?
Yes, thank you, Stefan. So, just to briefly introduce Atempo company. So we are a European software vendor. We have different type of, I would say, products inside of our portfolio. We have a few dedicated to data protection, so it is not the goal for today. And we have one product named Miria, which is a data management software solution we started to develop, I would say, 11 years ago. So we have a huge, I would say, technical expertise in terms of data preservation, I would say, because Atempo originally was born, I would say, 30 years ago. So we have a huge experience on this. And we have, I would say, customer worldwide, and we have a huge number of references with quantum storage, whatever I'm talking about, I would say scalar tape or DXI, or and now talking about ActiveScale from quantum. So, and our software solution Miria, it's has been developed originally to manage unstructured data, and very scalable solution, meaning that we have the capability to manage, I would say, more than 1 exabyte of data using this software solution. So just let me introduce this Miria software and how it can fit with the ActiveScale solution coming from quantum. So just to briefly introduce why we decided to develop a dedicated solution to manage unstructured data. So in this slide, you can see that Gartner a few years ago predicted that by 2022, 80% of global data will be unstructured. So we are now in 2023, I would say, and all vertical and all industry are facing some issue to manage this huge data grow in terms of unstructured data. So we observe this not only for, I would say, automotive department, but it's also the same for medical. And here we can talk about, for example, genomic customers. So we have a huge number of, I would say, customers using our solution for this. We originally start with the media and entertainment. So I would say we have a huge number of references in US using our software solution to preserve their asset with Miria and using, I would say, quantum storage. Originally, it was a scalar tape devices. So I would say now, I would say it's the same issue with when we are talking about mid-size companies. They are also demanding to have, I would say, this scalability to manage unstructured data. So just also to talk about what we observe on the market. So originally we perform, I would say, a solution for on-premise. And now we observe that more and more customers are switching from hybrid or multi-cloud, I would say, infrastructure. So, and Gartner confirms that cloud storage is definitively now a reality in corporate, I would say, IT infrastructure. So, and they also confirm that multi-cloud services is used by a huge number of customers. So I would say, for example, we just have a huge references in automotive with Quantum in France for a car manufacturer, which is to protect all of their assets they are currently have, I would say, in AWS and Google and also in Azure. And we use an external data center to protect all of these assets with, I would say, Miria software solution connected to quantum storage infrastructure. And for sure, more and more customers are switching from on-premise to the cloud. So, but some of them decided to keep some data also on-premise. Also, what problem also we can use for Miria? So we just added the capability to analyze what type of data you want to move very efficiently. So we added the capability to analyze what type of data has not been touched since I would say months, a year, or whatever, and to move this to I would say to a low cost storage. So more and more customers also are requesting to have a type of tiering solution, meaning that you can have, I would say, a primary storage based on flash system as an example. And after a certain period of time, it could be a month, a quarter or more, to move the data to nearline. And the nearline could be composed of one disk of storage, could be ActiveScale S3 object storage, and then after a certain period of time to tape for long-term, I would say, preservation. So we observe this more and more. Originally, it was more dedicated to, I would say, hyperscaler environment. So, and we currently working with different hyperscaler in Europe to implement this type of solution. So just to briefly also tell us that we have a software solution used by OVH Cloud in France based on Miria, and they use our software solution to move, I would say, data coming from their customer based on S3, and we move the data to tape in, I would say, very efficiently, and it's a huge amount of data. So Miria can be used not only, I would say, to move data from one storage to, I would say, a low-cost storage. You can use also Miria to migrate from an existing storage to a new one. When you have to decide, for example, to I would say, to move from one existing NAS to a new one, or I would say to move data from your on-premise NAS to S3 storage located in another data center. So as it is written in this slide, we can also use, I would say, Miria to protect your environment. So we have different type of backup scenario to do that. And for sure, originally Miria, the first, I would say, component was archiving. I would say it's more data preservation for long term. So you can move your data to a low cost and keep it for a long period of time. And then, as I mentioned before, we just added the analytics part, which help you to decide what type of data must be moved to another storage and to add also some tag, I would say tag or metadata to help you to retrieve your data in the future. So just to present you an example of the UI of the analytics part. So originally, we have the capability to, I would say, to analyze your data, whatever your storage is based on NAS or large file system. We support a huge number of different type of file system. In this slide, you can see that we support, I would say, Spectrum scale. We support, I would say, Lustre, all type of NAS platform or Windows environments. And then you execute a type of discovery on your storage. You can analyze based on the access of the file or the modification rate on your data, and decide to move it to I would say another storage for cost reason or for data preservation. So we introduce this. You can do that, I would say, at the NAS level, at directory, user level, a group user. So we have different type of capability inside these analytics tools we just introduced with our last, I would say, version of Miria. And also, for sure, when you have after performing your complete analysis, you can also use a very efficient, easy move interface of Miria to optimize, I would say, your cost. And just by clicking from, I would say, from the right to the external site, and then automatically your data is moving. So this web UI is dedicated to end user, and they have also the capability to add metadata, which could be helpful when you have to restore your data after a certain period of time. So it is very efficient for a customer performing archiving workflow for a scientific user. So we developed this type of solution for, I would say, a few laboratories in Europe, but it is also now used globally by many customers of Miria. So as I presented briefly before, we support, I would say, different type of, I would say, file system at the source and target level. So we can move data from, I would say, scale-out NAS. It could be Ipsilon, VAST, whatever, or different type of scale-out file system. In this example, I also added the StorNext file system from Quantum, and you can move this data to any type of storage. It could be another NAS, or it could be an S3 storage, or it could be, I would say, a tape devices. But also, the opposite is also used by your customer. You can move data from S3 to NAS or S3 to another S3 storage or to Azure or whatever. So again, as the example I gave just a few minutes ago, we have the capability with Miria to move data from a cloud to another cloud. It could be also from one cloud to local on-premise S3 storage, like I would say Quantum ActiveScale. So this Miria software solution has been designed to be very scalable. So just to briefly introduce that, we have data mover. The data mover is used to move data from one storage to another one. And we use a standard protocol to move the data. It could be NFS or I would say SMB, or we have also developed specific, I would say, components to be able to perform very efficient scanning on different file systems like GPFS or Lustre. So instead of performing a regular full scanning, we develop, I would say, a type of fast scan. For example, using the syslog coming from different file systems to know which file has been modified, created, or deleted since the last snapshot. And if this capability does not exist, we use our own solution to do that by being directly connected to the file system or using API. So very efficient to perform incremental synchronization or incremental migration of data. So again, on this example also, we can use our software solution when you have to migrate from one, I would say, file system to another or to synchronize. We have also with Miria the capability to synchronize data between different file systems using, I would say, NFS or SMB protocol. So customers are using sometimes this to synchronize data from NAS coming from different, I would say, storage vendor. Very helpful company. So, and it is available even if you use the solution through one connection. So in terms of public and private cloud, so we support for sure the S3 protocol, but we support also Azure or Google and OpenSwift as well.
Okay. Thank you, Pascal. I think now you all understand that with all the pain points I've started to speak about, I would say data management, data analytic to understand what you have on your primary storage is quite important. That will give you a full mapping of your ecosystem and how the data is being really used. Is it really hot? Is it warm? Is it really cold? And if that's more likely cold, that data maybe needs to be taken out of the traditional primary storage, more to an archive type of architecture, which will also relieve, I would say, the traditional backup, because you are backupping sometime files which are completely obsolete. So that will reduce the cost of your primary footprint. That will reduce the cost of your backup infrastructure. But moving that data, I would say, to a secondary tier storage like an archive, and in our case, to an ActiveScale, of course, the other threat was cybersecurity. That means the device that we need to put must be air gap at some point against cyber attacks, ransomware. It has to be also very cost effective. So we're going to leverage our object storage technology. Maybe some of you already have seen our ActiveScale object storage technology. It has, like most of real object storage, S3 target erasure coded, so that's more likely software, the capability to, I would say, from an object, create multiple segments with parity segments, which are spread among multiple drive, multiple controllers, even geo-dispersed across multiple sites, which will enable to bring durability, just like a real cloud, in terms of availability of the data. So you can lose a site, you can lose a server with multiple drives or a few drives and still can access to your data. On top of that, the system's got to be, I would say, scalable enough, because today you might have a few hundreds of tera or sometime a few petabyte and grow up to tens or hundreds of petabytes like some of our customers. So the solution's got to have the flexibility to scale with unlimited. And that's is a capability of our object storage, of course. The nice thing also about this platform now is the cold storage piece. The capability behind to put a tape or multiple tapes, like we will see on the next few slides, to enable to lower down the cost of the solution. So that is a key thing. The last thing on security I just forgot, of course, immutability is key. That means we have to have the capability to lock the files which are received by Miria to bring a kind of warm compliance of the file. So that is also the best line of defense against any type of attack. So of course, that object storage supports versioning, supports object locking, lifecycle, all these nice things. As I we say, the pain point is always the cost. We got to make this solution cost effective. So by putting tape behind, we lower down the cost by 80% of the overall capacity. Instead of maybe putting 15 petabyte of disk storage, you might put maybe 2 petabyte of disk as a front end, which gives you enough, I would say, kind of buffer to receive the data, to give back the data if needed. But and behind the scene, the 13 petabyte of tape will be used. And we will see how we're going to use the tape because a lot of people will say, yeah, but the tape, how do you protect? I need to create maybe 2 copies, 3 copies to guarantee that the data is secure because some people still think and doubt about the tape quality. The unique thing about our technology on tape is we also use erasure coding on tape. And the unique thing for quantum is to use a 2-dimension erasure coding. That means we aggregate all the objects which are eligible to be moved to tape, so kind of glaciatia. So we encapsulate, we create that container, we erasure code all these objects, and we write these segments across one tape to bring redundancy. But we also spread some segments on other tapes. That means when we need to write a tape, an object, we just load one tape and retrieve the object. So it's pretty fast. It's written back to disk and given back to the application which requested the object. If there's a problematic on that tape, we can still rebuild the information because we have redundancy segment on that tape. We might need to bring and read a little bit more data, but we can retrieve the data. Now, if that tape is not available for whatever reason, and we'll see that on the next slide, we can rebuild the data from other tapes. That's why we speak a 2-dimension. And this is really unique to quantum. A lot of people were saying, oh, but that's going to use a huge overhead. No, we can have a minimum of 15% overhead to have almost like a 3-copy simulation. So it's a huge also cost reduction compared maybe to alternative solution which will create basic copies. Now, as I said, how come a tape would be bad? Well, like we do with hyperscalers, instead of having a big monolithic library, we bring what we call our rail architecture, just like a disk, but it's a redundant array of libraries. So instead of having one library, you have multiple libraries. So in that case, maybe the object has been written on one tape on library 1, and the other tapes are in library 2 and 3. So for whatever reason, mechanically, for example, the library is maybe down for a few minutes. Well, in that case, we can still retrieve the data from library 2 and 3 because we have that 2-dimensional erasure coding. So this is a really nice solution because it brings availability of the solution. It brings also performance because having multiple robots goes sometimes quicker to load the tapes to access your data. We could also discuss about lots of things because the way we also read the tapes is pretty smart. When people request the object, just like a glacier, they ask a restore. We will, in that case, reorganize the read according where the data is on the tape. So lots of smart solution, and we'll be happy to go deeper if you are interested. Now, of course, this needs to be integrated with Miria. So Pascal has put a little slide like that saying, oh, how do you, I would say, configure with Miria? So it's pretty easy, like I would say, any type of feature of Miria. So very intuitive. So of course, your ActiveScale quantum is already configured. You have a bucket. On that bucket, you have said, okay, I want this bucket to be object lock. Okay. However, I did not put any retention on my setting of the bucket on the ActiveScale. Then in Miria, I would say configuration, those are the screenshot. You just first declare your ActiveScale. Then after you create the bucket, give the authentication with the access key and the secret key that the ActiveScale has provided to you. And you set up also two settings, which is the object lock retention utilization. That means when you will configure your migration policy, your backup policy, or your archive policy from Miria, well, you will define how many days, months, years, I would say, this object needs to be kept as compliant, like warm mode on the ActiveScale. Now, if we use tape behind the ActiveScale, so we speak about cold storage, ActiveScale cold storage, you also have within Miria interface the life cycle where you can perfectly set cold and you specify when you need to transit the object from, I would say, the disk to the tape. Here it's set at 0. That means within the next 24 hours, this object will be eligible to be moved to tape and removed from disk. And after that, you also have another setting, which is a retrieve. When you will restore the data because you need it, this is the value of how long it will be kept on that front-end disk. After that, it's removed because it's already on tape. So you see that it's a perfect integration of those two nice functionality, which are object locking. That means the object is locked. And also, it's not because it's on tape behind that we don't maintain that lock. That lock is also, I would say, propagated directly to the tape. And of course, nice integration also with cold storage. You can start with only an ActiveScale and grow that ActiveScale with cold storage with tape behind. Okay. In terms of industry, we've been recognized also. As you know, we acquired this technology almost 3 years ago, starting 2020, March 2020. So we'll be celebrating, I would say, a 3-year integration. And through those 3 years, we have ramped up, I would say, within the quadrant to be on top with the leaders. So we've been really recognized on that Cool2Go quadrant. As well on the GigaOM, which is more related to, new products, new trends, new innovation. I would say the cold storage, which is object on tape, we are #1 leader because our solution is really replicating what hyperscalers are today. If you're familiar with Amazon Glacier, we use the same type of API. So the way I would say we work is exactly the same as a Glacier would work. So this is a great, I would say, output from the market. But I'm not the only one who's having great output from those guys. Pascal, can you tell us more?
Yes, also as is the same for Atempo, I would say, with our Miria software solution. I would say, as I mentioned before, Miria was originally dedicated for, I would say, archiving and backup workflow. I would say since 3 years, we added the capability to perform migration, synchronization, and additional data movement and scalability. And then last years, we introduced also the analytics. So now we are a well-known, recognized software by Gartner, and as you mentioned also for GigaOM and Cold2Go as well. So we are part of the unstructured data management software. So, and we are recognized as the top 3 key player in this market, which is very nice for our Atempo company.
You want to wrap it up, Pascal?
Yes, just briefly, so to summarize what you already, I would say, talked about the integration we perform with ActiveScale cold storage. So it is very efficient when you have to, I would say, move data from your primary storage to a new one. I would say it is very efficient to do that with our software solution and having, I would say, Quantum ActiveScale at the target. So for sure, we support S3 object lock for immutability. And as demonstrated by by my colleagues, so we support also the long-term cold archiving capability of ActiveScale. So again, we are ready to help you if you have any, I would say, project on this and working closely with Quantum as well.